One last thing I want to hit on today, Steph. This is a draft strategy question. We do mock drafts all the time. If you haven't seen some of the mocks on our channel, check them out. They'll get you super prepared for draft season. But it's something we come across often. It's do you should you try to stack players on the same offense, or should you avoid stacking players on the same offense? So we're talking redraft here, 10 to 14 redraft leagues. Is there ever a situation where you want to stack multiple players from the same team, or does that limit your upside?
Yeah, you get into an interesting perspective here from the COVID projections. I'm not gonna go out of my way to design my team around avoiding COVID-19 worries and COVID risk. So far, everything's gone fine with the NFL. Among 23,260 COVID-19 tests administered to players from August 12th to August 20th, there were zero positive tests. So, we have more data that says that COVID's not going to be concerned than it will be. I think inevitably something will happen. But all the evidence we have thus far says things will be fine. In formats like best ball, DFS, and tournaments, you absolutely want stacks. You should go for stacks. But in standard redraft leagues, I think stacks are really fun.
Basically, Steph, before you get into this take, what Steph was saying with those COVID numbers is we think things are going to happen, but don't think about that when you're drafting.
Exactly.
I've had people come and say oh, well, Zeke already had COVID. Does that mean he's less likely to get it? Or should I avoid, drafting guys on the same team because of COVID? And the answer to that is no. We don't know. Don't think about that when you're drafting. Don't take it into consideration because with the COVID stuff, it's hit or miss. There could be stuff to happen, but it's not going to be predictable. So don't overthink that in your drafts. But Steph, go ahead. I'll kick it back to you. When do you like to stack different players?
I think stacks are fun, especially in leagues where you want to maximize upside. The other side of the coin here is that when you do a stack, it also maximizes the downside. So I think if you look at wide receiver tight end stacks or wide receiver stacks, getting like a Julio Calvin Ridley, or a DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, what that means is you're one bad game script or one off day from the quarterback to then ruin two of the spots in your lineup. So you don't want to go out of your way to get stacks, but where they are nice is when you can find them at a super late value. This is why we always say, let the draft come to you and the values are going to fall. Just in our league last weekend, I grabbed Deshaun Watson and then Brandon Cooks fell. And I needed wide receiver depth, so it ended up working out that way. In this situation, I'm not relying on Brandon Cooks or the stack with Watson to lead me to wins on a week-to-week basis. But let's just say Brandon Cooks emerges, he's the one. Then now I have extra upside when I'm going against teams that are stacked with, Christian McCaffrey and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, in their RB core. And the weeks where you just really, really need some upside, maybe you're just right on the edge and you want to try to beat somebody. I like making the kind of stacks like that. And those are the weeks where stacks matter the most, is when you do need that upside. So some of the stacks I like this year, I'll just give you some examples, are like the late quarterback and then the late tight end or wide receiver. So you never want to rely on the stack. That's really the main point I'm trying to make here. And ones I like are Matt Ryan and Hayden Hurst, Joe Burrow, Tyler Boyd, Carson Wentz, and Deshaun Jackson or Jalen Reagor. And I just threw the other one out there, Deshaun Watson, Brandon Cook. So I like stacks like that. Alex, are you in agreement? You going the other way?
No, I'm with you. To me, I love quarterback, wide receiver, or quarterback tight end stacks. Steph, is there a better feeling in fantasy football than having a quarterback, wide receiver, or a quarterback tight end stack and watching them connect on a touchdown? It's like one of the greatest feelings in the world. You can't help but jump off your couch when that happens. This year, in the league Steph is referring to, I have Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. So I'm hoping for many Julio touchdowns this year. Hopefully he can finally hit that double-digit mark. But I love it. I love stack. I think it's fun. I think it's awesome. And typically, I know there is the upside with the downside. If you have a massive week from Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, it's awesome. But then if Matt Ryan's not playing well, it could also hurt Julio. But I think typically if the stud is good enough, they can make up for bad quarterback play. So I think there will probably be games this year where Matt Ryan has an off week. Maybe he doesn't throw 2 touchdowns. He has 250 yards, a touchdown, and an interception or something. That's going to happen. But even in those games, Julio Jones can still have a solid week. So for me, I love stacking quarterback receiver, quarterback tight end, guys who can actually score points on the same play. Now, I typically do try to avoid wide receiver stacks. I don't want Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper. I don't want Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. I don't want Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Actually, I'll take Kelce and Hill. That one's probably an
Yeah.
exception. But think about it. If you have Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, unless there's some wild trick play, both of those guys cannot get fantasy points on the same play. So it just limits your upside a little bit. And it also, like Steph said, if you have Kupp and Woods and Goff has a bad day, you're totally shot. So I typically try to avoid that. I don't always mind, a quarterback wide receiver stack. Like if I have, Patrick Mahomes and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that's great. If I have Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram, or if I have, who's another good example? Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. There are times where in those situations, like Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara, because at that point you're essentially locking up all of the team's offensive production, unless there's some weird fullback falling into the end zone or, again, trick plays, special teams, touchdowns. If I have Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara, pretty much every touchdown the Saints score, which is a really good offense, I'm going to get fantasy points for that somehow. So or the running back quarterback stack, there's some sort of like blanket of safety because you might not get the upside because, if the Saints score 4 touchdowns and Alvin Kamara has 3 of them, it means Drew Brees, unless he connected to him on a pass, probably didn't get any points on those plays. So I don't always mind that. I definitely don't, shoot for it, but I'm not going to, move someone down my draft board or avoid drafting someone because of the quarterback running back stack. So I think we're pretty much in agreement here. Stack your quarterback and receiver, stack your quarterback and tight end, have fun with it, but just be smart when you're filling out those other players, and don't put all your eggs in one basket, because while there will be ups, there will certainly be downs, and that is going to crush you on a week-to-week basis.